favorite YouTube channel brought to you by Red Heart Yarns. In this video, I will teach you how to make the Sly Fox Scrubby. This is a super cute scrubby that's going to be a fan favorite at bath time, not only because of the cute nature of the fox, but because of the scrubby yarn itself. This is the brand new Red Heart Scrubby Sparkle yarn, and this yarn has a really cool little glitter and glitz to it, which really, to me, it makes this fox really stand up and come to life. This is a free pattern available on redheart.com. You can find a link to the pattern and information regarding all of the materials in the video description box below. While you're down there, if you'll go ahead and smash that like button, I would really appreciate it. Now, go ahead, get your pattern and your materials, join me back here, and you and I are going to make this super cute Sly Fox Scrubby together. Go ahead, I'll be here waiting. Now that you have your materials and your pattern, I'm ready to jump in and make this really cute scrubby pattern. Are you? Let's do this. Now, this pattern calls for 3 different colors of scrubby sparkle. So we will be using the scrubby orange, the marshmallow, and the licorice. Does your fox have to be those colors? No, you can choose whatever colors you want. As a matter of fact, if you want to try making this little scrubby pattern using an alternative yarn to start with, and then come back and play with the scrubby yarn, you can do that also. The pattern will work for all pieces, as long as you get gauge. So let's go ahead and jump in. So this is the cute fox. Isn't that adorable? I love it. Now, I got really lucky by pulling the yarn out of the middle of the skein of Scrubby Sparkle, but you can pull the yarn either from the outside or the center, your choice. But what we want to do now is we want to cast on 26 stitches, and we want to do that with what will be the base color, the main color of our fox. So this will be our color A. So orange is our color A, and I am going to use a knitted cast on. So I'll put the tail of the yarn in the palm of my hand, wrap the working yarn around my forefinger, middle finger. When I come back up, I cross over. Go underneath the front loop, grab the back loop, maybe, and off. Now I will place that directly onto my needle. Now the pattern calls for a size 8 needle or a 5mm. I am using a pair of size 9s just because I wanted my stitches a little bit larger so that way it could be easier for you to see what I'm doing. Now for a knitted cast on, you will simply, once you get your slip stitch onto the needle, go into that stitch with your opposite needle. You will yarn over and then pull that yarn over through the stitch. Extend that new stitch, swivel the needle that the first stitch was on, go in and scoop. So let's do that again. You can see here, this is the core of the scrubby yarn. It has all of these eyelashes coming off, but then there is a core, and that's the part we're working into. Go in, around, out, extend, swivel, and scoop. The swivel and scoop is very important. Now before I tighten that loop that just went on there, I'm going to go ahead and put my hook or my needle back into it. So I will do this again. Extend, swivel, and scoop. I'm in, around, out, extend, swivel, and scoop. Now I'm going to do that holding the yarn in my opposite hand, so that way those of you who have a hard time envisioning how to do it with the other hand, you can see how this works. So I'm into the stitch, go around my needle, come out the stitch, extend, swivel, and scoop. In, around, out, extend, swivel, and scoop. In, around, out, extend, swivel, and scoop. The reason the swivel and scoop is very important is it puts that ever so slight twist in the yarn, and it makes the base of this stitch look a little bit better, and so it's easier to work into as you do that. So it is important that you do that swivel and scoop. Okay, if I were to just cast on like this and be like, okay, I'm just going to scoop that on there, or not scoop that, I'm just going to place that on there and do it again, does that work? Technically, yes, that works, but it's not correct, okay? So you want to swivel and scoop. It places the stitch on your needle in the orientation it needs to be. Extend, swivel, and scoop. I'm going to get 26 stitches on there so that way we can move on to the next step. While I'm getting my 26 stitches, some of you might be wondering, do I have to use the knitted cast on to cast on these stitches? No, you could totally do a long tail cast on, a cable cast on. I would refrain from doing any sort of a backwards E cast on, but you do not have to only use a knitted cast on for this. I just found it to be very easy to do, and so I thought I would show you how to do that. I'm going to have to count my stitches here in a minute, which is a good thing for you to see me do. Because we're dealing with the Scrubby Sparkle yarn, and as I mentioned, it does have all of these eyelashes. So what you want to make sure you're counting is the base, the core of the yarn. And you can see the string right there. And so we'll be able to count our stitches easily. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 21. So I just have a few more. Extend, swivel, scoop, 22, around, extend, swivel, scoop, 23. Am I messing up you as you're counting? 24. Do you guys ever do that when somebody is counting, you throw out other numbers so that way they can't keep track? 25. I do it every so often and extend 26. But you'll notice right there, even as I was holding the conversation, I would throw out the number that I'm on. I do that with my kids all the time. Like I'll be like, stop doing that to your brother, 27. I said now, 28. And so my husband goes, Marley, what do you want for dinner? 1. These are the jokes. Okay, now that you have finished this first row and you have your 26 stitches on there, you will knit every row until this piece measures 2 inches. Now, if you remember from previous videos, if you were to knit every row, you get what is called garter stitch. And garter stitch is a great fabric for the scrubby patterns because it will not roll on itself. When you knit every row, you get what's called garter stitch, and garter stitch does not roll. It also gives you a nice sort of garter stitch ridges, not sort of, you get garter stitch ridges, and that can add as an extra piece of like the exfoliant of the scrubby piece itself. So it's a good stitch to use. Now I'm going to give you a little tip right here. As you're working this for 2 inches, you simply could just work for 2 inches. But those of you who are very OCD, similar to myself, and you want to keep track of the exact number of rows you will do, simply grab your pattern and grab a pencil. And as you complete each row, just put a little tick mark. So I'm going to put a tick mark right there to indicate that when I cast on my 26, that will count as row 1 because that was a knit row. And so now as I knit every row until the piece measures 2 inches, I will just do a tick mark all the way across until it measures 2 inches. Once it measures 2 inches, now I know exactly how many rows that is that I have on with my A color, my orange. Because the next step, it says change to B, which will be the marshmallow, and then we will knit every row for 2 inches again. Well, we don't have to guesstimate the 2 inches anymore or just hope that we are approximately 2 inches. We know exactly how many rows that's going to be because we've already done our tick marks. So here we are working into these stitches we have created. And what we're going to do is you will go into the stitch just like you did before, go around your yarn or your needle, and when you come back out, the stitch that we went into, it is now going to jump off of the needle it was on. And now we have 1 stitch on our other needle. So I go in, around, out, and then I'm going to have that stitch jump off. In, around, out, 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 jump off. Let's do that with the yarn in my other hand. For those of you who like that, I've been told through the video comments, which I love, please leave comments for me. I love to read your comments. But you have told me that you really appreciate being able to see each way of holding the yarn because one way might work better for you. It's the same motion. I'm in, around, out, and off. I'm simply holding the yarn in my other hand. In, around, out, off. In, around, out, off. In, around, out, off. in, around, out, off, in, around, out, off. 1. Get it? In, around, out, off. 2. Just joking. I'm going to do this all the way to the end of my row, and I will turn my work and then knit again. So I will work directly on top of these stitches I'm creating. I do want to make sure that as I turn my work and go into these stitches, the work that I am creating is flowing down from the needle. Meaning, if this is the first time you've ever knit before, and this is something you're going to start off with, as you're knitting and your work comes off of the needle, you want to make sure that you're never working into your stitches with the work coming, like pointing up. It always needs to point down from the needle, as if you are growing this piece of fabric and it's flowing down from the needle. Okay, so you can see my first row is complete right there, and you will notice that there are little bumps right there. Those are the back side of the knit stitch we just created, which means you are looking at purls. Okay, that might seem confusing, but the back side of a knit is a purl, and the back side of a purl is a knit. So you might look at this and say, wait a minute, I just did knits, now I'm looking at purls. That's exactly correct, because the back side of your knit is a purl. So as I go on and I work this row, I want to make sure I'm not using my tail, stick my tail out of the way. I will continue on, and I want to make sure, you have to be very careful, you're not working into that purl bump. You're working into the yarn as it sits on your needle. So I'm going to go into the stitch, yarn over and out, in, yarn over and out, in, yarn over and out. This yarn, the Scrubby Sparkle, is a little bit easier to work with than the regular Scrubby, in my opinion, because the core of the yarn itself is a lot easier to see. With the regular Scrubby, which I love, by the way, I use my fingertips a lot to find the core. I don't necessarily see it as easily as I see this one. So if that is something you're interested in, the Scrubby Sparkle might be exactly what you need as far as being able to use the Scrubby yarn. You'll see here, I'm just going around, I'm going into each stitch, and as I get to the end, I'm scooting them up so that way they're easier to get to. And I'm just knitting all the way down the row, making sure I'm only going into the knit stitch that's resting on the needle, and I'm not accidentally going into the bump from the row below, which would be my purl bump, okay? All right, so I'm going to do this. Now, I'm going to do this for 2 inches, and I need to make sure that I'm keeping track of how many rows I'm doing, and we will be able to change to our next color. All right, I just finished my last knit row, and I have 2 inches here. And so it is time for me to move on and add my next color. Now, adding the next color is simply as easy as just, let me move that out of the way, grabbing your new color of yarn, your Scrubby Sparkle, and then start knitting with that. But what I will have you do is I want you to go ahead, take your new Scrubby Sparkle, and we are going to tie it around the Scrubby Sparkle we've been using. So we are just going to tie just a regular old little slip knot, or not a slip knot, just an overhand knot, just like that. And we're just doing it right up to the edge of the last stitch we created. Once you do that, go ahead and snip the color you were using, because we will have to rejoin that. You don't want to float that up at all. So we've snipped the color we were using. We have our good new color here, which is white, which hopefully you're able to see against the white backgrounds here. And you will simply start knitting with your new color, leaving your old colors just hanging out. So what I want to do is, just like before, making sure I'm only going into the stitch that's on the needle, go into the stitch that's on the needle. Why am I having a hard time here? Make sure I grab my new colorway, yarn over my needle, come out and off. So I will have my new color on my right needle and my old color on my left. So I go into the old, around, out, off, in, around, out, off, in, around, out, off, in, around, out, off, in, around, out, off, We can switch hands. And it's the same process, in, around, out, off, in, around, out, off. And you'll notice the new color is resting directly onto your needle and you're working your old color off. And you will do this until the new color measures 2 inches. Once you have the new color measuring 2 inches, you'll then go back to your original color, join it the same way by tying a knot, snip your old color, and then work that for 2 inches. So we're gonna have a total of 6 inches of fabric, and it'll be, if you follow the same colors, it'll be orange, white, orange, okay? So let's go ahead, let's finish that part of the body. I am coming up to the end of my last row for my 2 inches. And I know that because I have been keeping track with my little tick marks. It takes me 10 rows to get my 2 inches. So there we are. And it's time for me to tie on my orange color again. So I'm going to do that. Simply taking the orange and I'm wrapping it around the white and I'm just tying a knot right up close to where the edge of the stitch is there. Snip the colors here. Snip the white, I should say, my old color. So we're done with that one for now. So I set that aside and I can carry on and just working in the orange. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to leave my tails out, hanging out just right there. We'll weave those in later, but I'll carry on now with my orange just like I did before. So I'll work into the stitch, around, out, off, in, around, out, off. I'm going to do this until I reach my 2 inches. And then I need to bind off. So I want to show you the bind off I'm going to use. I'm going to show you 2 different bind offs. I want to make sure that my final edge of my scrubby is just as flexible as my starting edge. So we are going to use a really awesome stretchy bind off. So you aren't going to want to miss that. Go ahead and get your 2 inches on this section and then we will bind off. The final few stitches of my last row for this section. There we are. So that's 10 rows of my orange. Now I want to remind you that I am using larger needles, so my square is a little bit wider than the original. You can see there, look, it's a little bit wider. But I am roughly the same height, so I've got my 2 inches perfectly, which is great. If I wanted to go back and maybe do an edging to make this bigger, I could, but I'm perfectly comfortable with the way it is. Now that I have finished my last row, let me put my tick mark here, it's time for me to bind off. So I'm going to move my pattern out of the way, and I'm going to show you how to do a stretchy bind off. We have this really great cast on, right? It has a little stretch to it, so why not bind off so that we have the same nice stretch? I love this bind off. It is my go-to bind off whenever I want my finishing edge to have a little bit of give to it. And it's really simple. The concept is the same, only we are going to do just something slightly different than a regular bind off. So I will start off by knitting my 2 stitches just like I do a regular bind off. So I have 2 stitches on my right hand needle. I will take my left hand needle, go into the front leg of those 2 stitches, just like so. You see how I'm through the front leg? Now I will yarn over my right hand needle just like I normally would, and I'm going to bring that yarn over through both of those stitches and off. So I'm left with 1 stitch on my right hand needle. I will knit 1 more stitch just like I normally would if I were binding off. Take my left hand needle, go into the front leg of those 2 stitches. See how it looks like I'm knitting these 2 stitches through the back leg. Okay, you see how that looks like that? I will yarn over my right hand needle and then bring that yarn over through those 2 stitches. So I've knit 2 together, and my knit 2 together has bound them off. Let me show you again. I go in, I knit the next stitch. So I have 2 stitches on my right hand needle. Take my left hand needle, go into both stitches through the front leg, yarn over my right hand needle and bring that yarn over through those 2 stitches and off. Let me show you with the yarn in my other hand. So I will knit a stitch just like I normally would. So I have 2 stitches in my right hand needle, left hand needle goes through the front leg, yarn over my right hand needle, and then bring that through those 2 stitches. In, around, out, off for my knit. Now I go into the front leg with my left hand needle, around the needle, out and off. Knit the next one. You'll see I'm pulling these down so that way you can really see where those legs are. I go in the front leg of both of those 2 stitches, and by knitting them together, that leaves me with 1 stitch. And even right here, you can already see, look at how much stretch that has compared to a normal bind off. And it's very comparable to what the start is. Okay, do you have to use this bind off? No, you can absolutely use a regular knitted bind off, but I would highly recommend learning this bind off because it is fantastic, especially if you're going to do something like lace or toe up socks and you want the top of your cuff to have a little stretch to it. It's a very great bind off to learn. It's a stretchy bind off. Once I get to the end, I will finish off just like I normally would by cutting my yarn, making sure I leave 4 to 6 inches. So that way I can weave in my tails. And I would carry on to the next step. So once you get to the end of this bit, what's great is this section of your Sly Fox Scrubby is complete, and we are ready to move on to the nose. The nose is made separately, just like the ears are made separately, and then they are sewn on to the piece that we've just made here. It gives a little bit more of a 3-dimensional look to a basic scrubby pattern. Of course, this has a lot of dimension to it with the fuzz of the scrubby sparkle, but it's just, you know, it's a fun way to really make the scrubby something extra special and fun for that bath time with the kids, right? Or maybe you're going to use it in your own bath time. I am not going to judge. So I'm snipping my yarn. I am pulling that through just like so. Give it a tug. And my little base of my fox scrubby is complete. And as I mentioned, mine is a little bit wider because I'm using size 9 needles instead of the size 8. But if you're using size 8, yours would be just about that size. See how cute that is? That's adorable. All right. All right, so let's go ahead and let's make the nose. Let's set aside the body here. And the nose, again, starts off with the orange color. So let's go ahead and get our 12 stitches on with the nose. I'm going to use the same cast on I used before. So I'm going to cast on my 12 stitches here. Simple, extend, swivel, and scoop. Super easy. Let me get the 12 on here and we will move on to the next step. All right, here is my 12th stitch, right like that. And the next row says we are going to knit. So we will go ahead and we will knit this first row here. Just like before, I'm going into the stitch itself and I am knitting it. So we will knit all 12 of these stitches. On the next row, we will begin to do some shaping so that we can get the really good nose shape of the fox. So once we get past these 12 stitches and we begin the shaping, we are gradually going to be decreasing down the stitches. So it's going to go really quickly. So I finished row 1. I will turn my work. Again, I want to make sure that my work is facing down from my needle. Okay, I have all my purl bumps right there, so I'm not accidentally working into another stitch that I don't want to work into. And we will do a knit 2 together to begin with. So I want to make sure I find the base that is resting. Remember the core of the stitch that's resting on my needles? And I'm going to put my right hand needle through both of those stitches. So just like I normally would, one stitch, I just want to make sure I go through both stitches and I will knit them together. So similar to how we did the bind off, we yarn over and pull through and then we just finish those 2 stitches. Now we will knit 8 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, which leaves us with 2 stitches, and we will do a knit 2 together with these 2 stitches. So just like before, I want to make sure I'm going to the one on the right first, going through both stitches, yarn over, and pull that yarn over through both of those stitches. So that is a knit 2 together. I will then turn my work And this row, there is no shaping on this row. We will just knit this row. So we will knit those stitches. So we were down to 10 stitches now because we just did 2 decreases. So I'm knitting to the end. I'm not going slow on this section because I feel like you have just spent a whole lot of time knitting. I'm not going slow on the knitting part because you've just spent a whole lot of time knitting the body. So I feel like you know how to do that. I've turned my work. We're on row 4. We will start off once again with a knit 2 together. So I make sure I go into both of those stitches, yarn over, and pull that through. See how I'm left with 1 stitch, and I'll let these 2 stitches jump off. I will then knit 6 stitches, or you can think of it as I'm knitting to the last 2 stitches, and I will do a knit 2 together again. So just like before, I want to make sure I'm going into this stitch first, go into both of them, make sure you're in through both of them, yarn over, come through, and off. So you're left with 1 stitch on. Turn your work and you will just knit this row again. And if we had 10 stitches before and then we just decreased 2 stitches, we only have 8 stitches now. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Perfect. You'll see here at the end of every row, I'm kind of pulling down the fabric I'm creating. I just feel like it really helps the stitches fall into place, and it helps me get my purl bumps lined up so I'm not accidentally working into them. So that's something you could do as well. So I've turned my work, and once again we will start with a knit 2 together. So I'm going to go into the 2nd stitch first, so the 2nd stitch, and then go in through the 1st stitch. I'm through both of them, yarn over, pull that through, let those stitches jump off. I will then knit 4 stitches or knit to the last 2 stitches, whichever way you want to think about it. I'm down here, I put my needle through both of those stitches and knit them together as well. And I can turn my work and I will knit back. All right, so we will knit these stitches all the way to the end. See, it gets really fast as you're decreasing down because you have fewer and fewer stitches. But what you're going to notice is we're really starting to have our nose begin to take shape. If this is the top, we're going down to the tippy point of the nose. So I have turned my work. I will then knit 2 together once again. Knit 2 together. I will knit 2 stitches, or you think of it as knit to the last 2 stitches, and I will knit 2 together once again. Perfect. Turn my work. We will knit what we have here. This goes really quickly, doesn't it? So knit these 4 stitches. And on the next row, it's going to go really quickly because we're going to do a knit 2 together twice because we only have 4 stitches left. If we do a knit 2 together right here, just like we have, there are no stitches in between before we get to the last 2 stitches. So we do a knit 2 together side by side. Oops, I didn't go into that stitch very well. Knit 2 together. Turn my work, and yes, I'm going to knit one more time. So I have to knit these 2 stitches. So there's 1, there's 2, and if I turn my work again, last row, we will do a knit 2 together one last time. So here I am doing my last knit 2 together, and then we will fasten this off. Now, as we fasten this off, I know that I always say to leave 4 to 6 inches of a tail. This time I want to leave a little bit longer because I can use my tail to sew this nose onto the body without having to join new yarn. So I'm just leaving a nice long tail so that way I can use it to seam onto the body. See how that works? So there is my little nose. Look at that cute little nose right there. This will be the nose for my fox. Now, when we make the ear, obviously we have 2 ears, so we are going to make 2 ears. And the ear portion, you have an outer ear and the inner ear on this pattern. So let's take a look at the sample real quick. If you take a look here, let's turn this right side around. You take a look here, we have the outside portion, which is the orange, and the inside portion, which is the white or the marshmallow. And so we need to make 2 of these, and you can't tell on camera, but as I feel this, these are really, not stiff, that's not the right word, but they have a lot more structure to them than the body of the scrubby itself, and that's because they are double layers. The marshmallow portion will get sewn on to the orange portion, and so it has a little bit more thickness there. And the same thing goes as we get to down here in this portion with the nose. That's where our nose is going to go. So let's learn how to make an ear, and then you will be left to go ahead and make 2 of them. So let's jump ahead and do that. For the ear, once again, we are going to cast on with our outside color, which is color A, and we want to cast on 10 stitches. So I'm going to be consistent here, and I'm going to use the same cast on, and you can do the same. So let's get our 10 stitches on here. Super easy. And what's going to be great is this ear is virtually the exact same construction as the nose. So you're going to see that this is going to go rather quickly. And the outer ear is just slightly bigger than the inner ear. So once you learn how to do this outer ear, you won't need me necessarily to show you how to do too much of the inner ear, because it's the same. It's just fewer stitches. Let's see how many I have here, because I have not been counting. Let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Oh, look at me, I have 10. That is a happy accident right there, ladies and gentlemen. So for this one, we will start off by knitting 4 rows. So because I did, if you notice here, remember I counted that first row as a cast on, my cast on row as row 1. But for down here, because this is saying it has specific row numbers, where up here it was just measure for 2 inches. I am not going to count my cast on as row 1. I'm going to start row 1 right now, and I will put a tick mark so that way I can keep track, okay? So that's going to be the difference here. That's why I am not counting my cast on row as my row 1, because on these part of the instructions, the row 1 is indicated as an actual row. It's not just knit for 2 inches. Okay, so I want to make sure that I am doing the exact number of rows that the pattern wants me to do. So at the end of this, I can do my tick mark just so that I can keep track of how many rows I've done, because I find it a little bit difficult to keep track or be able to read the rows on this yarn. So it's just easier for me to keep a little tick mark. And so once I get 4 tick marks, I'll be ready for the next bit. So as I'm going through this, hopefully you are able to follow along and just knit with yours as well. Maybe you're not as fast as I am, but don't worry, that will come with time. You will get super fast, and it will just be easier. And you'll notice that even with the ears that we're doing and the nose, we're keeping everything in garter stitch, meaning we are knitting every row. If you ever come across a pattern where it says work in garter stitch for X number of rows or X number of inches or centimeters or whatever it may be, you now know that if you were to knit every single row, that will give you garter stitch. And here's a little interesting fact. If you were to purl every single row, that would also give you garter stitch. So you just have to choose one or the other, whichever works for you. So here I am, I'm getting to the end of my row 4, and there it is, my row 4. Turn my work, and let's begin row 5. So row 5 begins with a knit 2 together, which is just like we did for the nose. So we have these 2 stitches right there, and we will knit them together. So yarn over, pull through and off. Then we go and we will knit 6 stitches, or you can think of it as you're knitting to the last 2 stitches, because we want this to be a symmetrical, nice, pretty ear. We want to do a decrease on one side and then do it on the opposite side. So I did my knit 2 together there. So now it's just a matter of working my rows just like we did on the nose. So we will do the decrease row, which we just did, and then the following row is just a knit row. So you knit all the way across, and even without looking at the pattern, I know I will start off with a knit 2 together right here. So let's do my knit 2 together, and then I will knit to my last 2 stitches right here, and I will knit 2 together these 2. Turn my work, and again you'll notice I am pulling down my work just like so. It just helps everything really fall into place. And I am on my knit row, so I will knit just all the way across. What's great about this, or what makes, let's say it this way, what makes the ear different than the nose, obviously, is the non-decreasing rows on those first 4 rows. It gives you a little bit of substantiated fabric, which makes the ear a little bit less pointy as the nose. So I just did a knit 2 together. I'm knitting 2, and I will knit 2 together again. Oops, I didn't go into the right stitch. See, right there, I accidentally went into the purl section below. Make sure I get into the right area and turn. And I have to knit these. So let's go ahead and knit these rows. And I will turn, and I'm down to my 4 stitches yet again. So 4 stitches, knit 2 togethers, we will do knit 2 together back to back. So here's our first one. Here is our second one. Ta-da! Turn our work. We will knit those 2 stitches. Pretty easy, right? You know how to do this. And then once we knit these 2 stitches, we will turn our work once again, and we will work a knit 2 together, right like so. And then we will fasten off. So the fasten off, the pattern is also suggesting for this one, we leave a nice long tail. So I'm going to do that. Leave a nice long tail, snip it, and we're just going to pull this through just like that. Give it a nice tug, and that is our first little ear. Can you see it? It's a little bit different from the nose, okay? Remember, the nose, we did not have, oh, there's all these tails. We did not have these 4 rows to kind of lift it up a little bit more than the ear. All right, so there's those. So now we have to go on, we have to make another outer ear, and then we have to make our inner ear. So the inner ear, let me show you how to do that one. You will use your white for that, and you will cast on 8 stitches. And just like before, where we did rows 1 through 4, we knit. For this one, we will do rows 1 through 3, we will knit. And then we will jump in to our outside shaping decreases. So let me get my 8 stitches on here, and then I will knit these 3 rows. I've knit my 3 rows, and it's time for me to jump into my shaping. And remember, I have fewer stitches because I cast on 8. So we will start off with our knit 2 together, just like before. We have fewer stitches between that knit 2 together and the next one. So I am knitting 4 stitches across to my last 2 stitches here, and I will knit them together. As I turn my work, I will knit this row just like before. See, it's the same construction, so there's nothing really new here for you to learn. It's just a matter of making the outer ear, and then the inner ear is just slightly smaller, but it's very similar in construction, just smaller. So I've turned my work, I will knit 2 together. And as you do this, it does get a little bit tricky. You want to make sure you're not accidentally going through the wrong space. And then knit to my last 2 stitches and knit 2 together. And I still pull down my work after every row, so that way it kind of has all the stitches fall into place where I want them. This row, I'm just knitting these 4 stitches. And when I turn my work, I will do knit 2 togethers. 2 knit 2 togethers, 1 right here, and 1 right here. Turn my work. My tail gets all stuck on there. I'm going to knit these 2 stitches. Once I've done that, I finish off with a final knit 2 together, and then I will cut this yarn also, leaving a nice long tail. When in doubt, leave a nice long tail so that way you can use it to sew the pieces together. So I'm going to leave a nice long tail with this one. Give it a pull, just like so. And I have the inner ear. So let's match up the 2. I want to make sure I have the right bit here. It's kind of hard to tell. All right, that's the nose. Here is the outer ear. So there's the top of the ear. And let's see here. Here's the long tail. So that's the top of that one. So as I sew these 2 pieces together, that's what it will look like. So why don't we go ahead and do that right now? Let's go ahead and let's take our tapestry needle. Now I love to use bent tip tapestry needles, okay? I feel like they are wonderful, especially when I'm using any of the scrubby yarn. I think having a steel tapestry needle really makes a huge difference. So all I'm doing, you see here, I took the tail and I pinched it around the needle and I'm just working it through the eye. And with the two pieces together, so I have the outer edge and the inner, or the outer ear and the inner ear, I'm going to start this and I'm just going to go in, making sure I'm going through both fabrics, and I'm going to come back up and out. So, and then I go back in and come back up and out. I think this is called a running stitch, but it is a great way just to add this particular bit together. All right, so now I come up the other side and I'm just going to do the running stitch all along here as well, making sure I'm going through both fabrics. What's great about the scrubby yarn is it hides a multitude of sins. So if this is something that was going to, you know, be a little bit not show up as much or show up better, how about that? If the stitch was going to show up like really bad, I would probably choose a different way to join the two, but this works just as well. You don't have to do a whip stitch, and just by going in and out, it's just a running stitch. I'm making sure I'm going through both fabrics as I go through, and you can see I just went around the whole piece. So I just went around the whole outside of the inner ear, and as I flip it around, you can barely, ever so barely see the white. And if that's not secure enough for you, you can always go around, woo, you can always go around one more time. But I don't think I need to. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go up and down, back up, and then go back down. All right, just so I can get it to the inside here. And what I want to do is I think I want to do sort of a hitch knot. So I am grabbing some of the orange yarn behind the ear, behind the inner ear. And as I come back up and I get this nice loop, I'm going to take my needle and thread it right through that loop and then pull it up and give myself a nice little hitch knot. And I'm going to do that a couple times to really secure this tail into place. I feel like using the knots in the scrubby yarn is totally okay. One, because the fuzziness of the yarn really hides it, but it just helps really grab everything into place. Then you can take your tail and weave it in just a little bit on the back side here, just so that it's hidden away. And then you can snip that one you've been working with there. And then you are left with your starting tail right there. Okay, that was my starting tail. So I'll get rid of that, throw it in my trash bin, and I can weave in this one as well. And if there are any bits where maybe I just didn't, well, that doesn't want to go in there very well. If there are any sections where maybe my initial join didn't take grip very well, I could, like right there, I can use this tail to really secure that nice and easy, just like you would any other piece. All right, so I could pull that down, flip it inside out, not inside out, but working at the back, it's the same thing. Just doing the running stitch. And now I will do just like I did before with my hitch stitch, my hitch knot. So I get my little loop there and I'm creating my knot. And I find this knot to be really helpful. I don't use it in very many projects that I do, but when I'm working with the scrubby yarn, I find it that it really helps grab the yarn and keeps it in place. So I use it quite a bit to knot the pieces together. Especially, you know, because they're going to be used for, you know, washing bodies or washing dishes or whatever. And I feel like the knot really isn't, it's not that big of a deal. It just helps everything stay where it needs to be. I just want to weave in my tail a little bit more, and then I will feel comfortable giving it a snip, just like so. And there is the outside of my ear in orange, the inside of my ear in white. So what would happen now, because I don't want to have to go through and make another ear and make you have to watch me do that, why don't we go ahead and join our outer ear to the body. So let's bring our body in here. And what we're going to do is following along with the photo image. So take a look at the photo image and kind of see where you want things to be placed. And what's really cool here is, so we have this nice long tail that we finished off with the ear, right? But it's sort of in the wrong place because we want to sew it down here. So what we can do is, using our tapestry needle once again, go ahead and thread that tail onto your tapestry needle, get it in there, and let's go ahead and kind of weave just through the outer ear all the way down with that running stitch again. I'm just threading that tail all the way down that edge to get it down here where the other tail is, okay? So now I'm down here where it's really in a better place for me to sew the ear onto, that's the better word, onto the body. So for the placement, let's see here. On the image of the pattern, it has us doing, let's say I have this upside down, and there's the right side. So the reason I knew that this is the right side is on the wrong side, you can see where the color change happens. Can you see that, where the color change happens between the orange and the white? So I'm going to choose this to be my right side. And what the pattern did is it took the ear and it put it out here on the outside edge. So it has the outside edges. And it actually pulled in a little bit at the top. So it pulls in, let me show you on the sample. You can see up here, it pulled in a little bit of the fabric, so it kind of gave it a little bit of a shape. So you could do that if you want. But as far as how to sew this directly on, let's start it off right here at the edge, just like they did. The designer is Rebecca Venton. And for this, I am going to use a whip stitch. So I am taking a little bit of the body and the edge, the cast on edge of the ear, and I am just going to whip them together. And if I feel like this whip stitch needs to be a little bit more secure than what I get at the first round, the first time I do it, I can go back and just do it again. That's the thing that is so wonderful about this scrubby yarn is, like I said, it hides a multitude of sins. So if you mess up, or maybe you skip one of the joins here at the start, it's really not ever going to show. And you can always go back and double up the actual join, which isn't a bad idea, especially if you're going to have this be used by kids and they're going to be rough with it. But it's just a great way to be able to seam everything up. And as I'm talking here, again, I'm just grabbing a little bit of the body and a little bit of the ear. I'm not coming through the inner ear. I'm just coming through the outer ear. I know this might be a little difficult to see on camera, and it's just the nature of the beast. So work with me here on this one. I am going through the body, coming up through the ear, and I'm just doing it all the way down. I'm doing the join all the way down. And I will do it to make sure that I get to the very last corner of the ear. I don't want my ear to be, look funny. So here we are. There's my ear. Look how cute that is. And I'm here at the final corner. So if I wanted to, I can come back through here and just come back a little bit more. Maybe I backtrack on myself. And I can secure it just ever so much more. All right, so I just secured it just a little bit more. Remember, I have this tail over here to come in. So when I come in this direction, it's going to secure that bit a little bit more. And so now that I've done that, I can really do my hitch knot here. So there it is. There's my little circle. I'll do my hitch knot. And I'm going to do the same thing on the opposite side. So I'm going to come through. Let's see here. I'm going to flip this. And I'm going to grab some yarn. I'm grabbing through the orange. I'm going to do another hitch knot over here. I just want it to stay in place, okay? And then I'm just threading my needle through a little bit. And I'll come back this direction. And I feel like that is nice and secure. So I can snip that. Get rid of that tail. We can grab this yarn. This is the starting cast on tail of the ear. So for this, I can use this bit to, again, just secure it ever so much more, the ear, secure the ear to the body of the fox, just through the fabric, just like before. I'm just kind of whip stitching it through. This one I'm just kind of going up and down, and then I'm going to work my way back. I want to do a hitch knot. I'm going to flip it around and do it on this side. So I'm going to come back down. Really, there's no rhyme and reason. I just want to secure it in such a way that it's not going to come undone. Okay, so you can find the best way that works for you and just go with it. All right, you can totally do this. I know you can do this. So let me weave this down this direction and come back this direction. And then I would be secure enough to snip that tail. There we are. So just as I wove in my tails for the ear, okay, just as I wove in my tails for the ear, you can see there that it's already kind of pulling in a little bit, which is great. I would do the same thing, weaving in these tails. And I'm not going to worry about undoing those knots I created there at the beginning, because I feel like those are a good place for them to be. What you will do though is you would thread your yarn. Let's do the orange. Let's thread the tail directly onto our needle. And I'm going to work on the opposite side. So I'm working on the side where you can see the join. And I want to make sure that I am literally just working through the orange portion. So if I'm working with the orange yarn, I'm just going to go through just a little bit of the orange area. And you can follow the actual stitch, which is something I really love to do. And more often than not, that's how I weave in my ends typically. But when I'm dealing with the scrubby fabric, you know, that really doesn't make that much of a deal because we have so many outside factors going in as far as the eyelash. So here I am back at the edge, and I'm just going to do a hitch knot once again, just like I did before, because I feel like that really helps secure pieces. And I will do another one right here. When you're working with a scrubby like this is not that big of a deal. If this was a sweater, it'd be a different story. We'd have a little bit more finesse in the way we are weaving in our ends. But for a scrubby, we just want to make sure that our ends are not going to come undone, right? And we don't have to worry about the beauty of the ends. But here we are. Tuck that all in, and it's all just through the orange, so it's not showing through any of the white. And that end is woven in. So I would do that the same thing with the two white sections and then my orange bits once again. What is that? That's another orange. All right. So now that we know how to make the ear and the body, and then we have our nose here that we would want to sew into place, right? So the nose, we want the point going down. So we want to make sure the nose is in the middle of our fabric. And it is up a little bit higher than the white, I think, and then it comes down a little bit lower. So I really want to make that pointy. And let's see, I think I want to use this side. So this is my lice long tail I had. And I'm going to sew my nose into place, very similar to the way I did the inside ear. Okay, so I want to make sure that's all in place where I want it. And I am just going to do my running stitch to sew this right into place. Okay, so let me get this into place. Once I get this bit into place, let's go ahead and I will show you how to sew the little extra parts for the eyeballs and the nose. All right, so I finished my nose and I went ahead and I wove in all of my ends, and now it's time for us to make the eyes and the nose, and they're all made the same way. So let me show you how to do that. Hopefully you're able to see how to do that here with this black yarn. The instructions say that we are supposed to use color C, which is our black, and we are going to start off by casting on 3 stitches. So just like before, I will start off with my knitted cast on. Remember, I want to stay consistent. So I'm doing the exact same cast on, and I'm just doing 3 stitches, okay? So I have my 3 stitches on my needle. Let's see here, let's make sure everything is in place so you can see what's going on. 3 stitches on my needle, and I will start off by working a knit front and back. KFB means knit front and back, so this is what we're going to do. We'll go into the stitch. Let me hold my yarn over here for you. I think it might be easier. We're going to yarn over and come out the stitch and extend, but we are not going to let the stitch we just went into fall off yet. We are going to swivel our right hand needle, go into the back leg of that same stitch that's on our left hand needle, okay? So we're going to the back leg of that same stitch, yarn over and pull out and off, okay? So that's a knit front and back. Then we have to knit 1 stitch, and we have to knit front and back again. So we go in, around, out, just like we normally would. Extend your needle, swivel your needle around, and go into the back leg of that same stitch that's on your left-hand needle. Now you will knit again. So you yarn over and come out that stitch, and now you'll let that stitch jump off your left-hand needle. What you've done is you've just done an increase. So where there was 1, we now have 2 stitches. So now we have a total of 5 stitches. This next row we will knit. So we knit this row. And the next row we then do a decrease. So we increased, and now we're going to do a decrease. Okay, what this is going to do is give us a circle. So now, just like before, we're going to do a knit 2 together. So we have our 2 stitches right there, and I will go into both stitches, and I will knit them together. I will knit 1 stitch, and then I will knit these last 2 stitches together. Okay, so now I'm back down to 3 stitches. Now the instructions say to go ahead and bind off, leaving a nice long tail. So I have 3 stitches and I want to bind them off. I'm not so concerned about these stitches having stretch, so let's bind them off just like we normally would. So I will knit 2 stitches, and I will have the back stitch jump up and over the front stitch that we just knitted. So I'm left with 1. I will knit the next stitch, have the back stitch jump up and over the front stitch and off. And then once again, the instructions say to make sure we leave a nice long tail. So this one I'm going to make sure I leave a nice long tail so that I can sew that into place. So what we have here is what looks like a nice little circle. And we will sew this circle onto our body. We'll sew one right down here at the tip of the nose, and then we'll make 2 more and we'll make eyeballs. So let's show you how to sew this bit on. I'm going to show you how to sew it on down here at the tip of the nose. So I'm threading my needle just like I did before. I'm going to find the placement. I want it literally down here at the tip. And just like before, I am going to do a running stitch because I find that to be the easiest to sew a piece like this together. And so for this one, I'm coming down and then back up. I want to make sure I'm trying to maintain the circle look here because a fox has that little tip at the bit of his nose, and we want to make sure we keep that little circle. So right here, it's just up and down, up and down. It's just the running stitch, just like we did before. And I'm just sewing the tip of the nose into place, and it's super cute. If you decided, you know what, Marley, I really don't want to have to do a knit front and back. I don't want to do this little bit of the nose. I'm more interested in maybe embroidering the nose. You could do that. So I want to show you how to do that just in case that's something you're interested in. So maybe you, or maybe not just the nose, maybe you do the nose like this and you decide, all right, I want to make the eyes differently. I want them to have a little bit, you know, like an embroidery stitch. I'm going to do that instead. You can do that. So here we are. I've sewn the nose into place. Okay, cute little nose. And I'm going to flip it around so my yarn's in back here. And just like before, because I want to make sure nothing comes undone, I'm going to do a hitch knot. So I'm going to pull that up a little bit so I can get some here. There we are, and I'm going to come through that and make that go up. I'm going to do a couple of those just to make it secure, and then weave in my end just a little bit here. Go down, I'm going to come back. Okay, I'm secure with that. And I would do the same thing with this bit. So for this one, my nose is really nice and secure on there, so I don't feel like I have to go back around at all. So I'm just going to pop this edge of the tail of that little bit of the nose inside. Cute. And let's just weave in our ends here. It's pretty simple. I mean, this is the wrong side of the scrubby. It's not going to be absolutely immaculate, right? I'm good with that. I don't feel like I need a hitch knot with that one, so I'm going to snip it. So if this is where we are, and of course you have another ear to do here, but maybe you just want to do some eyes, some embroidery eyes. It could be as simple as this. Go ahead and thread some of the black yarn, or whatever color you want to use for the eyes, onto your needle and cut a good length off. So let's just do that much. And I'm going to start back here, and I'm looking at the picture. We don't even have to look at the picture. We can look at the actual sample. You can see the eyes are right on either side of the nose. So I'm going to make sure I'm right here on either side of the nose, and I'm just coming up, and I'm pulling it up and making sure that I have a nice tail left back there. And I could do a circle, or I could just kind of, I don't even know what this is called, but I am laying the yarn, making sure it doesn't pull too much. It's the biggest thing, is you want to make sure it doesn't pull too much, but it does pull enough that you start getting some fabric there. So you just start creating this like loops. They're just loops essentially. Making sure each loop is laying right next to the previous, going through the fabric. I'm putting my thumb there because I don't want the other loop to get too tight as I'm doing the new loop, and it just kind of creates them side by side, and I'm just making sure they're all right next to each other, and I'm getting a nice little eyeball right there. And so I can make this as thick, as big, as, you know, whatever I want it to be. And it doesn't even have to be a big eyeball like we have here. We could, let's cut this and just try something else. If we wanted to, I mean, we could have it where it was something super cute. So maybe, you know how maybe we have like a circle going down. Let's just play with this here. Maybe we do something along these lines, and we pull that through. All right. And then we can come back, so going the same route back, just to make that little loop a little bit more, or not loop, but the line a little bit more visible. All right, so maybe we do that. And then maybe we come back and we do lashes. I don't know, I'm just thinking outside the box here. We could come up and do lashes. And I wonder how cute this will be. Let's see. Maybe it's winking. I wonder if this is going to end up looking like it's winking. Let's see here. So there's one lash. Let's do another one. Make sure we got something going on here. Not pulling too much. That's the biggest thing, is you just got to make sure you're not pulling too much and getting the other piece of the yarn in the way. Let's see here. And then I'm just going back, like I'm trying to make the lash. Okay, and I'm coming back up. And then maybe I do one more over here. Is this gonna look like a wink? Gonna look like one eyeball is winking and the other is not? I have no idea. I don't know, let's peek. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm just going to come back one last time to really define the line of the wink, you know what I mean? Let's see what it looks like. If I get down this way, I'm going to pull this one a little bit looser. There we are, that's better. Let's put it down. Does that look like it's winking? It does over here, does it on the camera? It kind of does on the camera. It's supposed to look like a wink, but we can mess with that a little bit. My point is, if you want to do the circle, like knit a circle like you did for, like I did for the tip of the nose, you can do that. And you can do that for both eyeballs. You could embroider an eyeball, or you can make one look like it's winking. You can really make this fox your own and make it as sly as you want to be. So here we are. The Sly Fox Scrubby is what you have learned to make today. It's super easy. You can see, obviously, in the video, you can make one of these up really quickly if maybe you have a baby shower or a kid's party to go to. I think these would be a big hit because everybody likes a fox, and you can make a card that says, "What does the fox say?" Hopefully you've enjoyed this video, and you'll come back here for more videos right here on the Marley Bird YouTube channel. Don't forget to smash that like button, as my kids say, and I will talk to you guys again soon. Enjoy your scrubby. Did you enjoy this video? I hope you did. Make sure you hit subscribe so you're up to date whenever there's a new video release. And don't forget to smash that like button.